Can an app on your phone actually stop real-world violence? It's a huge question, right? But it's a question we have to ask because it gets to the heart of a major public health crisis. Today, we're going to dig into a really fascinating study on an app called BrotherlyACT and see if technology might just offer us a new way forward.
So here's our game plan. We'll start by looking at the scale of the crisis, then I'll introduce you to the BrotherlyACT app itself. After that, we'll see how it was tested, we'll dive into the results, and then we'll zoom out to see what it all means. Sound good? Let's get started. Okay, so before we can even talk about a solution, we have to be brutally honest about the problem. We're talking about youth firearm violence, and according to the CDC, it's actually the #1 cause of death for kids and young adults in the US. I just want you to take a second and look at that number. 24 times. What on earth does a number like that even mean? Well, here's what it means. It's a staggering disparity. For young black men between 15 and 24, the risk of being killed by a firearm is 24 times higher than it is for young white men in the exact same age group. This isn't just some dry statistic, it's a public health emergency that's hitting one specific community incredibly hard.
So you might be asking, why haven't the usual prevention programs fixed this? Well, they're up against some massive roadblocks. There's a huge stigma around asking for help, a deep and frankly earned mistrust of institutions, and a big one is that most programs only step in after someone's already been hurt. It's a reactive approach, and when you add in problems with access and follow-up, it means we keep missing the chance to stop the crisis before it even starts.
And this is where a totally different idea comes into the picture. If young people aren't going to traditional services, maybe the solution needs to meet them where they already are, which, let's be honest, is on their phones. So let's take a look at the BrotherlyACT intervention.
So, what is BrotherlyACT? At its heart, it's a mobile app built from the ground up for young black men, and its entire purpose is to give them support before a crisis hits, tackling violence, substance use, and mental health all in one place that they can access anytime.
Now, here's what I think is the most crucial part of its design. It's what's called culturally responsive. And I know that can sound like just another buzzword, but what it actually means is that the app was built with young black men. They made sure the stories, the language, the narrator, everything felt real and authentic to their lives. And that's absolutely key to breaking through that mistrust we talked about. It makes the app feel like it's for them and from them, not just aimed at them.
So what are they actually learning in the app? Well, this isn't some abstract academic stuff. We're talking about tangible, real-world skills. Things like how to say no when someone's pressuring you to carry a gun, or how to use cool-down tools to de-escalate a fight before it starts. There's even mindfulness and breathing exercises designed specifically to help manage intense emotions.
Okay, so the ideas behind the app are great, and the design is smart. But here's the million-dollar question. Does any of it actually work? Well, to find out, researchers decided to put BrotherlyACT to the test.
So here's how they set it up. They found 70 young black men who were seen as having a low to moderate risk for firearm violence. The researchers had them use the app's video lessons, and they measured their attitudes and behaviors with surveys right before they started, and then again 4 weeks later. Pretty straightforward. And just to be really clear, the risks these young men are facing are not hypothetical. Almost half of them, 44%, said they'd been threatened with a gun in just the last 6 months. This context is so important because it shows the app wasn't tested in a sterile lab. It was tested with young men navigating very real dangers every day.
All right, this is it, the big reveal. After 4 weeks of using the video modules, did the app actually make a measurable difference? Let's get into the data.
And the first big finding is, yes, a definite yes. On these surveys, a lower score is better, and as you can see, participants showed a real, statistically significant drop in their attitudes that support using guns and violence. The biggest change was in something called aggressive response to shame, which is basically that impulse to lash out when you feel disrespected. And that is a huge deal, because so many fights escalate from that exact feeling.
And that wasn't all. The app also led to a significant drop in something called reactive aggression. Now, this result is really interesting, so let's break down what that term actually means.
Okay, so think of it like this. Reactive aggression is that impulsive, heat-of-the-moment lashing out. Somebody bumps into you and you just snap without thinking. That is what went down. What didn't change was proactive aggression, which is more planned out, more calculated. So this suggests the app is really good at teaching those in-the-moment skills for keeping your cool.
But, it wasn't a silver bullet. The results weren't all positive. The study found that there was no real change in the participants' underlying levels of depression or general psychological distress. So the app was helping to change behaviors, but it wasn't moving the needle on their deeper mental health state.
So what's up with that? How could it change aggression, but not seem to touch the underlying mental health issues?
Well, the answer really comes down to what exactly the study was testing. It turns out this pilot study was only looking at the video lessons. The full BrotherlyACT app actually has a bunch of other tools designed for mental health, like a safety planner and even an AI chatbot for talk therapy. Those features just weren't turned on for this specific evaluation.
So let's pull all this together. When you step back and look at the whole thing, what are the big takeaways? What does this study really tell us?
Here are the things I think are really important to remember. First, and this is huge, this is proof that digital tools can make a dent in the attitudes that fuel violence. Second, that culturally responsive design wasn't just a nice to have, it was the key that made it work. This gives us a really promising new way to think about prevention. And finally, the fact that pretty much everyone completed the modules shows this is a realistic way to reach a group that is often very hard to connect with.
You know, the researchers themselves really nailed it with this quote. An app like this is scalable, it's accessible, and maybe the most important part, it's discreet. It lets a young person get help on their own terms, in private, without the stigma of walking into a clinic.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative thought. We spend so much time talking about smartphones as a source of problems, right? But this study flips that idea on its head. What if that device, the one that's in nearly every young person's pocket, could actually be one of our most powerful tools for building safer communities? Based on this evidence, that's a question we really need to start taking seriously.